There's Brendan.
Yeah. Okay, just check. Yes, because the second, you see the second thing's gonna, yeah, well done.
There we go.
Well done, you.
That's cool.
It's really interesting. And it's like a perfect combination of magic and science.
Yeah. I'll check them out. Thanks, Frank.
And the main character is super genius.
How's it going?
I feel I've just like literally got across the top of your head.
Probably have.
Yeah, but they'll edit it out. So
Ladies and gentlemen,
Let's hope so.
can I have your attention, please? It has come now that time of the day for the speeches. So, I would like to hand it over to the father of the bride, Mark Kenneth.
Let everybody get their seats. Can you hear me? Hello, everybody? Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. Maybe extend it slightly. Okay, can you still hear me? Yeah? Right, good evening everyone on what is a truly wonderful day in these splendid surroundings and having just enjoyed a wonderful wedding feast. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Mark and I'm the extremely proud father of this beautiful and radiant bride. On behalf of Brendan's parents, Julie and Paul, my wife Elizabeth, and myself, and the happy couple Alex and Brendan, can I say what a pleasure it is to welcome the friends and relatives of both families. I know that many of you have travelled long distances to be here with us today in St Andrews. Thank you all for coming to celebrate this very, very special occasion. I hope you have all had a wonderful afternoon and will continue to enjoy the evening's festivities. Doesn't Alex look totally stunning? And they both look tremendously happy together. I have been preparing for this day for 27 years, just over. That's 9,889 days, to be more precise. It's amazing what you can do with Excel. Yeah, that is exactly the number of days since the 6th of July 1990, when Alexandra was born. So I'd like to share with you a few memories of Alexandra's firsts over those 9,885 days. Firstly, I remember, like yesterday, Alex's first day with us, when she was born. And not very long after that life-changing event, when she was first sick on me. I remember Alex's first proper smile, and also when she first bit my nose. When Alex had her first injection she received as a baby, she felt the sharp needle and was clearly very cross indeed with the doctor who administered it. But she was even more cross with me for not thumping him. It was really clear. Her eyes were dancing between me and the doctor, and she was really quite cross and frowning. This increased, and she was clearly even more annoyed as to why we were both smiling. I had to change my smile because I realised what she was looking at and why she was getting crosser. I remember Alex's first wobbly steps and she was so sweet at the accomplishment. Very similar, I guess, to those steps Alex's friends will recall from a hen night. Alex's first day at primary school, where she won everyone over with her enthusiasm and thoughtful care and kindness for everyone. There's a first. Nine will be right in the notes. Alex's first black run on skis before she was 6. Much to Alex's amusement, another advanced skier and myself from my class had to chase after her, but failed to keep up with her. "Come on, Dad," I could hear her in her crisp little voice as it echoed back up the mountain. Now, like most fathers, I was extremely protective of my little girl. And so it was, in this welcoming atmosphere of open-mindedness, that I recall Alex's first date. And my proclamation to Alex that I would kill the first boyfriend as an example to all the rest. A line I actually stole from the actor Bruce Willis of Die Hard fame when he talked about his daughters. That's where it came from. Alex's first exam successes, of course, and her first day at St Andrews University. All very fond memories. It has been an absolute joy for me to watch Alex over the years develop from a very talkative, extremely inquisitive, and invariably funny and amusing little girl into the very beautiful, clever, loyal, kind, and loving young woman that she was today. And it was my honour and privilege to escort her up the aisle. I will cherish that moment forever. Alex is the perfect daughter on many levels, and I must also thank with all my heart Alex's grandparents, my parents, Richard and Patricia, for the huge contribution they have made to Alex's life. And helping to mould her into the wonderful person she has become. This brings me on to Brendan in a few words. So I was just coming to terms with the fact that my little girl had well and truly overtaken me on the cleverness scales when Alex told me she had met someone at St Andrews University. Brendan's academic triumphs and future ambitions were incredibly impressive. So what could I teach this young man, or pass on in terms of masculine wisdom? Time went by, and at an unlikely life event, at a hospital car park in Dundee, a situation arose, an opportunity. I won't go into all the circumstances, otherwise the younger guests today will be enrolling at St Andrews University themselves. However, unfortunately, Brendan's car battery had died and run flat. To cut the story short, I jump-started the car with Brendan's help pushing, of course. Brendan could not have been more surprised that it worked. And he couldn't have been more surprised if I'd pulled a rabbit out of the glove box too. I confess I felt a little smug at the achievement, and even more so when Brendan asked me later in the evening over dinner, "Mark, how do you jump-start a car?" At last, I thought, I have something to pass on to this very intelligent young man. It felt good, I have to admit. However, pride comes before a fall. Brendan the scientist then emerged when he asked, "But how does that work precisely?" Of course, knowing how to do something doesn't mean you know how it works or, why it works. So Brendan had the last laugh on that one too. Alex and Brendan's relationship blossomed over the years, and so it was in Prague that Brendan proposed to Alexandra. She was so pleased. And frankly, the whole Kennett family, including myself, were absolutely delighted with the news, as we'd all been thoroughly impressed by Brendan's charm, thoughtfulness and love for Alex over the years when they were courting at university. Brendan was another of Alex's successful choices in life, and we shall be very proud to call you our son-in-law. Alex and Brendan complement each other perfectly, and I am sure you will all agree they make a wonderful and thoroughly nice couple together. Julie and Paul are equally lovely parents, and justly proud too of Brendan and his many achievements. He is an absolute, undeniable credit to you both. And Elizabeth, our family, and I are delighted by the formal joining of our two families together. It is my very great pleasure to propose the first toast to the happy couple. Please join me in raising your glasses in a toast to a long, happy, healthy future for this lovely couple together filled with the sound of laughter. So could I please ask you to be upstanding and raise your glasses. The bride and groom, everyone. The bride and groom. Okay, I'd like to pass you on to the groom now.
Thanks very much, Mark, for a wonderful speech there. Well, I'd like to say to everyone, thank you for coming and making this occasion even more special. So many people have contributed to our celebration today that it would be impossible to thank everyone individually. We're so lucky to know so many wonderful, talented people. From the photos to the favours, whenever there's been something that we've needed for the wedding, there's always been someone on hand who could be persuaded or coerced into helping. So thank you to all of you. This wedding would not have been the same without you. There are a few people that I'd like to single out specifically for thanks. I'd like to thank Karis for playing the harp so beautifully during our service. I'd also like to thank Alex's grandma, who unfortunately had to step out, and her Aunt Claire for their work in making the flower girl dresses and the favours. And I'd also like to give a special thanks to Steph for making the ties for the bridal party. I'd like to say a few words about Alex's family. The first time I met Mark was when he took Alex and I out for dinner in St Andrews. And despite the lovely acclaim that he's just given me there, I'm not sure that he took to me straight away. Since at that first meal, he quickly began telling me about the sword that he kept in the attic and his experience as a marksman in the cadets. Needless to say, I didn't take the hint, although I might have done if I'd known what he'd said to Alex. I think Mark has since come round to me, and over the course of many visits to the Isle of Man, he's made me feel like part of the family. So to Mark and Lizzie, I'd like to say thank you very much for making me feel so welcome, and I'm proud that I can call you my parents-in-law. I'd like to say a few words to Alex's grandparents. I know Pat isn't here at the moment, so I'll address this to you, Richard, if that's okay. I know how important you and Pat are to Alex, and I'm so glad that you could be here with us to celebrate this special day. I'd like to thank you as well for welcoming me into your family. I remember the first time that I came to visit Alex's family on the Isle of Man. Pat, Alex's grandma, stayed up all night painting the room that I was going to be sleeping in, just to make sure that it was up to her standards. Both of you have always gone above and beyond to make me feel welcome, so I'd like to thank you for that. I'd also like to thank my family for their support over the years. There's not many parents who put up with a son who spent the best part of a decade at university. To Dad, I'd like to thank you for the history lessons, for constantly offering me coffee, even though I don't drink it, and for teaching me that it's entirely reasonable to not pay parking fines based on legal advice that you've read on the internet. To Mum, thank you for teaching me how to make the perfect Christmas dinner, for your valiant and tireless efforts to turn our childhood home into a wool shop, and also for introducing me to the world of single malt whiskies. But mostly, thank you both for all the advice and support you've given me and Alex over the years. Now, if I might, I'd also like to, on a slightly more serious note, I'd like to say that I'd like to take a minute to talk about people who couldn't be here with us today. In particular, my grandparents and Alex's mum, Alison. Although they can't be with us in person, they'll always be in our hearts and never far from our minds. With them in mind, I'd like you all to join me in a toast to absent family and friends. Absent family. Thank you. Now, it's my pleasure to say a few words about my wonderful new wife. Alex gave me a few instructions about the kind of things that I should be saying. But for your benefit, I've decided to completely ignore them. I asked Alex to marry me on top of the Prajna Brana Tower in Prague. Well, that was after waiting 10 minutes for her to stop taking photos of the sunset. When I asked Alex to marry me, she didn't say anything for about 30 seconds. It was a very long. I mean, she looked a bit overwhelmed, but in a happy sort of way, so I had a feeling what the answer was going to be. After the longest silence of my life, Alex found her voice and agreed to marry me. I'm glad that Alex has found her voice today, and I'm so happy that I can call her my wife. I can't believe how amazing you look today, and also how you managed to keep your dress a secret from me, despite talking about it to almost everyone. I'm so lucky to have such a wonderful, intelligent, witty, and altogether brilliant person to spend the rest of my life with. I love you, Alex, and I know that my life will be better every day after this for having you. If everyone could join me in making a toast to Alex, the beautiful I'm going to pass it over now to my sister Stephanie, who's going to read some apologies for the people who couldn't join us tonight.
Just before I read the apologies, I just want to say that it's just on behalf of the Kavanaghs, it's a joy when your family grows, and it's wonderful to have it grow by someone as wonderful and lovely as Alex. So I'm just very happy to have you as my sister-in-law. So, from Breed McKenna, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I shall be thinking of you. From Geraldine Kennedy, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I wish you both every happiness during your life together. From Margaret and Martin Quinn, may I wish you both what a great uncle sent to me on my wedding day. May you have health, happiness, and length of days. Lots of love to you both. From Auntie Mary, I wish you all the happiness in the world on your big day. I wish I could have been there, but poor health has made it impossible. My advice for a long and happy marriage is to treasure each other always. From George Somerton, who is away in Mongolia, I hope you have a lovely time. Short but sweet. Brendan, I'm so sorry I can't be with you today, but I will be thinking of you, and I'm sure you'll have a wonderful day. Really enjoy yourselves, and I look forward to celebrating with you when you come to the Isle of Man. And one more from Brendan's Uncle Paul, who very sadly can't be here with us and was going to have a role playing his Northumbrian pipes, but because of illness is unable to be here. Wishing you every blessing at the start of your wonderful life together. Be kind to each other, forgive each other quickly, and don't let the night go down without making up after any arguments. We are with you both in love and spirit on this very happy occasion. Welcome to the family, Alex. Lots of love from Louise and Paul. So I was going to say to absent friends, but I don't want to be repetitive, so I will just say once again to the bride and groom. Let's raise the glass. Bride and groom.
Hello everybody. Can you hear me? Yes, good, right. What have I got in my pocket? So, good evening everybody. For those of you who don't know, I'm Tom. I've known Brendan for almost as long as I can remember, since I was 5 years old. So having that quarter century or so of insight into his personality, and knowing what a unique and special person Brendan is, I'm quite frankly astonished that he has found somebody who's willing to marry him. No, Brendan is an incredible person, and ever since we met at 5 years old, he's been one of my closest friends, and I am really genuinely proud and honoured to be asked to be his best man and to speak to you all today. So I'd like to start by saying just first of all how pleased I am to see you all here, to thank Brendan and Alex for inviting us all. It's been such a wonderful day, I'm sure you'll all agree. I'd like to echo Brendan's thanks to everybody who helped make today such a beautiful and memorable occasion. I'd also like to mention once again how resplendent the bride is. However, I feel I must be scrupulous about equality, as I know Brendan would never forgive me otherwise. On his stag do, he did mention his disappointment at Alex's reluctance to take up his suggestion of calling hers the lioness do. A more noble creature than a hen. So you can tell this is going to be a marriage of equals right from the start and on the groom's particular insistence. So on that note of equality, let's also have a whoop for how resplendent the groom is. Is that mine? I think it is. Right.
You always do that.
Before we go any further, I'd also like to raise a toast for the maid of honour, Lisa, the bridesmaids, Holly, Lucy, Caris, Ailish and Fiona, who've all done an incredible job of supporting Alex over the past several months and getting everything ready for such a wonderful day. And we must not also forget Martha and Ella, who've been so helpful and vibrant today as the Flower Girls. So if you could join me in a toast to the bridesmaids and the Flower Girls. Thank you. So, as I mentioned, Brendan's been one of my closest friends since as far back as I've had friends at all. In fact, not just Brendan, but also Julie and Paul and Stephanie became a kind of second family for me during my primary school years. That's not to mention Christine, who's also here today, and also an honourable mention for Nala, who sadly is not with us today. Many of you may remember her fondly. So yeah, from P1 onwards, Brendan and I were best friends for a long time, and those are years where a best friend really is an influence on your whole world, your whole life, and I'll always be thankful for having a friend like that at that time. Somebody to stay up till all hours chatting to, whether we were discussing it might have been Mario Kart, or the laws of motion, pop bands, philosophy, Celtic, girls, Red Dwarf, technicalities of the rules of Jinx, or how time travel might or might not be feasible. So in the many topics of conversation, I think, to be honest, we were both a couple of weirdos. And if we hadn't found each other to pal up with then, we might have both been forced to become a bit more normal. But I would have been deprived of that experience of true youthful friendship, and Brendan, must say, is an internally inquisitive, intelligent, and positive person. Some people may read inquisitive and intelligent as obsessively nerdy and oblivious to the real world. But I have to say the conversations I've had with Brendan over the years have been some of the best I've ever had with anybody, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. So I have so many memories with Brendan going back so long, it's hard to pick out particular stories. One big, obvious childhood ritual, which a few of you here might have shared, was travelling through to Glasgow to watch Celtic during the Henrik Larsson glory years. Yeah, there were no replays on the big screens then, so I mentioned all the stuff Brendan and I would chat about. If we got carried away chatting about something and just happened to miss a goal, we just had to kind of pretend to join in with everybody else. Yeah, something good's happened. And another happy memory is playing at Sea Monsters in St Andrew's swimming pool, which involved both of us jumping onto Paul's back. He would try and throw us off as best as he could. A scene which we're going to recreate for you now. Yeah, back then we were always each welcome in each other's house, and my mum fondly remembers how sweet and innocent Brendan was the first time he ever came round to our house. At the time, my brother Joseph was just learning to walk and wanted to be included in everything, and my mum remembers Brendan sheepishly approaching her to say, "Excuse me, I'm sorry to bother you, but your baby keeps following me." At times there may have been some slight tension between the families. I think Julie might have been slightly indignant about Brendan asking my mum to write down some of her recipes so he could take them back to her house to be recreated. You know my mum, it's not the first thing that's happened. And my mum also perhaps took a liberty a time when Brendan happened to be over at our house on shearing day, and she'd run out of her own boy's hair to cut. She's got 4, but she ran out. So Brendan was summoned to the chair, and the infamous hair-catching sunflower device ceremonially pulled over his head. I saw the lovely picture of this at home. He went home that night with a good, honest, homemade trim that might have given his family a bit of a shock. Maybe it wasn't barber's standard. Yeah. I remember Brendan always had the most amazing birthday parties when we were wee. A few that particularly stand out were jet boating on the Forth, whitewater rafting in Perthshire, and a trip to Newcastle where we went to the Science Museum and the multi-storey toy shop where I believe George Laidlaw got his head stuck in a fence. You can remember that? Yeah. However, one standout memory comes from one of my own birthday parties. We went to Edinburgh to a make-your-own stir-fry restaurant where they put all the ingredients out on a buffet and you take your selection up to be cooked. And Brendan decided to see how much hot chilli he could fit into one bowl. Now, you know, Brendan, he's not the sort of man to make decisions based on sort of bravado or egotism, so I can only assume it was a rigorous scientific experiment. But in any case, it had the predictable effect of causing him to drink about 4 pints of water over the next 15 minutes in order to cool himself down. That may have confirmed the main hypothesis of the experiment, but led to an unanticipated secondary result as my parents had to stop the car on the hard shoulder at least 5 times and drive back to Redford so that he could get rid of those 4 pints of water again. Right. So, we went to different secondary schools and we saw a bit less of each other, but Brendan and I always remained close. In summer of 2008, we actually became colleagues, both working at an old stalwart Fife attraction, not at all far from here, some of you may know it, Craigton Country Park. And at that time, Brendan had joined the University Jiu-Jitsu Society and was everly obsessive, deep into the theory and practice of martial arts. One of my most vivid memories of working at Craigton Park is a sight from the rowing boat pier of Brendan in his all-green Fife Council uniform, perched on a wall of the castle there in the lake, pacing back and forth, swinging a boat hook around his head, practicing his jiu-jitsu moves. Hopefully the customers didn't mind. I haven't imagined that scene, I think that was it. Then, for the new academic year after that summer, Brendan selflessly volunteered his services to support that year's new intake, who would become his academic sons and daughters. Which is a wholesome and pure-hearted activity, of course. As an academic parent, Brendan had a duty of care to make sure new students were given a warm welcome and made to feel as comfortable as possible. And he certainly went above and beyond in the fulfillment of that duty. By the end of that academic year, in case you don't know what I'm talking about, he was in a relationship with one of his charges, but in order to avoid any scandal, he waited another 6 years to propose to her. 8 years later, from the first time Brendan introduced me to Alex on a visit to St Andrews in 2009, she struck me as a very good influence on him. Cheery, sociable, witty, but also quite prepared to let him know if he was droning on for too long about something nobody was interested in, or to bring him back to the real world if he was getting a bit too mad professor-y. And she has kept him grounded ever since. It's been wonderful to get to know her. I'm delighted to see that the relationship has stood the test of time, and they're now making the next step of commitment to one another. I have unbounded admiration to Alex for putting up with him for so many years already, and may there be a great many more to come. Nearly there. Brendan and Alex moving to Edinburgh, where I've lived since 2007, was such great news that shortly afterwards my partner Katrina and I decided to move away to Glasgow. But last year we decided it was safe to return, and for the past year or so it's been great to live in the same city with Brendan and Alex, encouraging Brendan in his plans for a future home where they will grow their own food, grind their own wheat, and most importantly build a forge in the back garden where Brendan can indulge his latest obsession of blacksmithing. I believe Alex is equally glad that we've had the chance to develop these skills. I think I've gone on for long enough now, and I'd like to thank you all very much for listening. I believe that before I finish, I'm traditionally supposed to give some advice on a happy marriage. However, I'm not yet married myself, and I know that neither Brendan nor Alex would thank me for any cheesy, patronising or sexist cliches, and I think we can all agree that they seem to have the hang of it pretty well already. So, what I would just like to say is why I think they'll make such a great success of it and why they are such a wonderful couple. Both of them are hugely patient, kind, intelligent, honest and thoughtful people, and these are qualities that will allow them to remain caring and open towards each other as their relationship matures. In, as I said, nearly 25 years of friendship, I'm not sure I've ever seen Brendan really get angry and shout about anything, or at least anything that happened in real life or in the last 1,000 years. So that's got to be a good sign. And as we've all seen today, they are so clearly devoted to each other, while still being able to poke fun at each other, to take life seriously and lightly at the same time. And I really believe this will serve them well as they move on to the next stage of their life together. And as I'm sure you all are, I'm very proud and happy to be here today to see it. So finally, let's raise our glasses for the most important toast of the evening. Will you please join me in wishing Brendan and Alex all the joy and success they deserve, to the bride and groom. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I kindly ask you to make your way to the ballroom foyer so that we can turn around the room for you, and also if you can place